All right, ladies and gentlemen, in this video, we are going to be closing up shop on our discussion on quadrilaterals in kites. All right, so we're going to be talking about the properties of kites. First and foremost, a quadrilateral is a kite that has two pairs of consecutive congruent sides. All right, so one side after the other are congruent to one another. But it's very, very key to know the opposite sides are not congruent to one another. So what are the characteristics of kites then? Well, what's interesting about the kites is their diagonals. All right, the diagonals of kites, as we can see here, all right, are perpendicular to one another. Why is this important? Well, we can use things like Pythagorean theorem because we get four right triangles being created when the diagonals intersect. So that's something to look after as well too. The other characteristic of kites that we're going to discuss is that they're opposite angles. All right, what about them? Well, because that they have two pairs of consecutive congruent sides, and their opposite sides, are not congruent to one another, that means that both pairs of opposite angles cannot be congruent to each other. However, there is one pair of opposite angles that are congruent, and I can promise you it's always going to be the pair of angles that is created by the two non-consecutive sides that are congruent, all right? So notice these two non-congruent consecutive sides, right? So BC is clearly not congruent to CD, all right? AD is clearly not congruent to BA, so that these two angles will be the ones, right, that are in fact congruent. So let's use these in some basic application here. So it says AB is a kite. Find each measure. Well, in this case, ABCD is a kite, and it wants to know what the value of AB, this side length, is right here. Well, what do I know? Remember what we just said, guys? We said the diagonals form something very perpendicular to one another. All right, actually, draw that on the side. All right, there we go. And I just want to draw it here just so it doesn't get in the way of my three. All right, so they're perpendicular to one another. What does that mean? We form four right triangles then by doing so. Well, why is this interesting? Because what happens with a right triangle? We have two sides of a right triangle. What can we utilize? Oh, I hope you're thinking Pythagorean theorem because that would be correct. Now, if you remember our Pythagorean triples, you know that this is going to be a 3, 4, 5 right triangle, but maybe you didn't know where I got that from, so let's do it the long way. Pythagorean theorem says a squared plus b squared equals c squared. In this case, it is ab. So 9 plus 16 equals c squared. 9 plus 16 looks a lot like 25 equals c squared. Square root both sides, and of course c equals 5, because square root of 25 is 5. What about over on this side, though? Okay, it wants to know what the measure of angle C is down here. So what do I know? Well, I know that the other characteristic of kites is that it has one pair of opposite congruent angles. And I told you it was going to be the ones that are created by the two non-congruent consecutive sides. So what does it tell me? Well, it tells me that angle B actually is also 85 degrees. So what's left over is what we're really asking ourselves, because this is a quadrilateral. We know that the quadrilateral has to add up to 360 degrees. So really what we're trying to say, hey, I'm going to call this x for now. We're really saying that 85 plus 85 plus 120 plus x will add up to 360 because it is a quadrilateral. And so really 360 minus 120 minus 85 minus another 85 gives us that value of x, or really the value of our measure of angle C, adds up to 70 degrees.